Guys, welcome into my official 2022 fantasy football running back tier rankings. We, of course, know the running back, the most important position in fantasy football. We've got a number of running backs to rank, so let's get right into it. I've customized the overall tiers. You've got your RB1s, your RB2s. Those are pretty self-explanatory. Flex options, sleepers, busts, and then handcuffs. So pretty self-explanatory categories. I'm just going to be ranking every one of these players. Starting, looks like we've got the Packers backfield, Aaron Jones. So I'm going to put Aaron Jones in the RB2 category, probably the back-end RB2. I am not high on Aaron Jones personally. It's almost like he has a timeshare with A.J. Dillon, and he was extremely inconsistent last year. His overall touches, I see, with A.J. Dillon being back there, I just personally don't like his value in the early second round. And you've also got the Packers probably having a worse offense, less red zone opportunities with Davante Adams gone. A.J. Dillon is a very clear handcuff, a high-end handcuff, but I would not be starting A.J. Dillon if Aaron Jones was healthy, really in any league, unless you're in some crazy, 20-team league. Next, we've got Alvin Kamara. So I'm going to say RB2, maybe towards the back end of RB2. This is another guy I'm really not interested in drafting where his current draft position is at. We know he's been a fantasy stud for so long. I think people are kind of overvaluing him. Last year, he was extremely ineffective as a so-called bell cow back. I don't know why the Saints used him as a bell cow back. That's not the type of player he is. He's more of a scat back, receiving back, who gets maybe 10 to 12 carries a game, not 20 carries. He averaged one of the fewest yards per carry in the NFL, and he's also dealing with that suspension. Also, there might be a little bit of an injury concern. What tends to happen with these running backs that get tons of carries and tons of touches each year, they become more susceptible to injuries. So Alvin Kamara is someone, based on his current draft position being in the early second round, I would stay away from. Antonio Gibson, I would say, I would put him as a flex option. He's going to have a high floor, considering he'll be the goal line back, but that overall backfield with J.D. McKissic limits his ceiling so much. He never gets targets or pass catching opportunities. Every third down, J.D. McKissic is in, so it's really tough outside of a few goal line opportunities for me to be extremely optimistic about Antonio Gibson. He is someone that I'm personally staying away from. Next, Austin Ekeler. I think he's an RB1. The one concern with Ekeler overall is the injuries, but if you're these are PPR rankings, I should say that these are PPR rankings. If you're playing in a PPR league, 1-point PPR, he's amazing. In a non-PPR, I'd probably move him down to an RB. Well, I definitely would, because very unlikely to receive many goal line carries. That's not the type of back that he is, but I do like him as overall an RB1, and he is going right now top 4, top 5 of most drafts. Cam Akers coming back from injury. I'm really high on Cam Akers in that offense. They're explosive. They're going to be in the red zone a lot. And Cam Akers, it is a tough injury. I know a lot of people are concerned about Cam Akers, but I do think he will be the RB1. Fresh legs, young running back, amazing out of the backfield, catching passes. Stafford's not afraid to check it down with that offense and how they utilize the overall running back. I like Cam Akers as an RB1, and I think he's a great option in the second round. Chase Edmonds, I'm going to put as a bust personally. He is now on Miami. That backfield is just so crowded. He's not going early in drafts, but I'm just not interested in that Miami backfield. So maybe you could put him, I don't know where to put Chase Edmonds. You really can't call him a bust because he's going in round 8 or round 9. I don't think he's really maybe you put him on the back end of, he's really not a bust, because if you're picking him in round 8, you can't really have him be a bust, Next is Christian McCaffrey. So it's all about the injuries with McCaffrey. I am going to say he's an RB1. If he plays 15, 16 games, he's going to be a superstar. His pass catching ability in PPR leagues. The question is he going to be healthy? He's currently going second or third overall in most drafts. I am optimistic he's going to be healthy. You know, the injuries that he suffered, they've been more minor. It's not like he's had a crazy Achilles injury or anything like that. So, you know, he is still young, and if you want to take a positive from the last few years with his injuries, he hasn't gotten beat up. He hasn't gotten a ton of touches, so he should be ready with fresh legs going into this season, and I do have him as, I mean, it's health. All it is health. If he's healthy, he's going to be one of, if not the best running backs in fantasy football. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm going to go ahead and just put him on the back end of flex options, maybe in front of Chase Edmonds. The Chiefs simply don't run the football. They really don't. So, I mean, listen, if you have a situation with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I found myself a few times when I was doing mock drafts, you know, I'd be there round 8, round 9. I see Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's decent value, depending on if you're playing in a 10 or a 12-team league, just to get some running back depth. So I would say he's nothing more than a depth piece, very similar to Chase Edmonds. Maybe I should have added another category as a depth piece, because that's really what Chase Edmonds and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are. I really wouldn't consider them flex options unless you're playing in like 14-team leagues. Cordarrelle Patterson, I've got as a bust. I'm not interested. I think he was a one-year wonder last year. And pay attention, I don't think he's in this list. Tyler Algier needs to be owned in every 12-team league. Draft him as your last pick. He's a rookie 5th-round pick. He'll be starting in Atlanta by week 10. They're going to be 1-9. They're going to want to see what they can get out of their rookie. He will be getting 20 touches by week 10. Tyler Algier, he is my #1 fantasy sleeper running back. And Cordarrelle Patterson is just being overdrafted. I'm not interested. There is some appeal to Cordarrelle Patterson in the sense we know he gets a lot of catches. But you know what? Maybe I should move him to flex. Yeah, he's just not going early enough for him to be labeled a bust, in my opinion. Next, we have Dalvin Cook. So Dalvin Cook, I would say is an RB1. I would put him in front of Cam Akers. The thing with Dalvin Cook, there is a significant risk for injury. He's got a lot of wear and tear on his tires. But the positive is, as long as you draft Alexander Mattison, you're fine. If you get Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison, let's say Dalvin Cook gets injured, you just plug and play Alexander Mattison in there. He turns into an RB1. So as long as you get, if you're drafting Dalvin Cook with like the 10th overall pick, make sure you invest a late round pick on securing Alexander Mattison. He is the best handcuff in fantasy football, in my opinion. Damien Harris, I'm going to say bust. I know this, you know, again, it's a thing where he's not being drafted until round 7 or round 8. I don't trust the Patriots backfield at all. Damien Harris was meh last year. I'm not interested. I'm staying away from him personally. DeAndre Swift, I'm going to say RB2. And I'm you know what I'm going to do? Should I move Kamara? I think, DeAndre Swift maybe towards the back end of RB2. He's a guy I'm really not drafting. I don't hate DeAndre Swift, but they still have Williams there, so I worry a little bit about a timeshare. He is really good in the passing game. You would think Detroit would be down a lot. He's a solid running back. If you got to draft, listen, the strategy pretty much every year, and especially this year, take the running backs early. If you have to draft DeAndre Swift, do it. I'm actually going to move him in front of Kamara. I'll probably move him in front of Aaron Jones. Just thinking about it, I am high on DeAndre Swift as a solid running back, especially PPR points overall. David Montgomery, I just don't like running backs in a situation that David Montgomery is in. I'm going to say bust. I really am. I'm not interested in David Montgomery. He's in a horrible, horrible, horrible offense. There's going to be not a lot of red zone opportunities. He's being drafted as an RB1, round 2, round 3. I'm staying away from him. Derrick Henry is someone that has pretty high bust potential. There's the issue with Derrick Henry is the PPR points. I'll give him RB1 status. My issue is just the lack of overall catches, and really there's major injury concerns again with Derrick Henry, just like there were last year after the workload he received. And the other issue is there's really no viable handcuff for Derrick Henry. Maybe Foreman, I guess, but overall with Derrick Henry, I am concerned about him. I might have to move him down I think I'll move him down to an RB2 just because there's too many injury concerns with Derrick Henry. If you have to take him in the first round, take him. I would take Najee Harris over Derrick Henry. That's just my personal opinion based on how young Najee Harris is, PPR opportunities. Devin Singletary, bust. I'm not interested in him. If there's one running back from Buffalo I would draft, it would be James Cook, the rookie from Georgia. Elijah Mitchell, not a bad flex option. Not a bad flex option at all. That's a situation with Elijah Mitchell. You know, he's the one quote-unquote RB1 that seems to be falling a little bit. He should be the RB1. They've also got Jeff Wilson. They do also have Trace Sherman, so it's a little bit more crowded. But he's going to start week 1 probably getting 15, 20 touches. That's great value if you're drafting him in the 6th or 7th round. Maybe you want to pick Jamar Chase in round 1 and a wide receiver in round 3 and a tight end in round 4. I would not recommend doing that, but you need depth running back options later, and he's a guy that's going to get carries, so I have no problem as a flex option or even a low-end RB2 depending on your league size. Zeke is just a complete bust, guys. So I really think the Cowboys are going to rely on Tony Pollard. Zeke has been declining for several years now. After this year, the Cowboys can get out of that contract. And the Cowboys right now, quite frankly, are in a situation where they have to win. They simply have to win. So for me, Zeke is a complete bust, in my opinion. James Conner is another one. Total bust. A lot of people are saying it. The touchdown regression is real. Even if he, for whatever reason, has more crazy touchdown numbers, he just doesn't put up enough yards, enough, targets in the passing game to justify taking him as a 2nd or 3rd round pick. It's way too risky. Stay away from James Conner. Javonte Williams, I'm fine with him being an RB2. He would probably be towards the back end. I will move him in front of Kamara and Aaron Jones, just my opinion. People are worried about Melvin Gordon, but there's been reports out of the Broncos camp that Williams is supposed to get 70% of the touches, which would be unbelievable. They're going to have a great offense. They're going to be in the red zone a lot with Russell Wilson, and they've got a really good young wide receiver core, so I expect them to score points. Again, the only issue is Melvin Gordon, and if you do get Williams, I would probably say invest a handcuff pick into Melvin Gordon, depending, but overall, I do like Williams if you're drafting a running back in the middle of the 2nd round. J.K. Dobbins is another one that I love. The only concern with J.K. is, Lamar Jackson possibly stealing some of his rushing touchdowns. Whenever you've got a running back along with a QB that also runs, it becomes a bit of an issue. But J.K. Dobbins, their offense should be good enough. He should receive significant carries, even with Gus Edwards there. He's coming off the injury. He should have fresh legs. He was already activated. They're saying he's fine and ready to go week 1. He's a great pick in the 2nd round. You want to be drafting running backs early. Any of these guys are great assets to have, especially since the receiver class is so deep. Joe Mixon, I would say, probably RB1 with Joe. He's an absolute stud. You could even move him in front of Akers. I love Joe Mixon. 14th overall pick or value is where he's going. I've seen him go late 1st, early 2nd. Anywhere around there is a great pick, in my opinion. I would probably pick him over Derrick Henry, honestly, just based off the injury concerns, along with Joe Mixon's PPR opportunities in the passing game. Also, you have to factor in that offense is going to be great, and they should be in the red zone a lot with Joe Burrow. Jonathan Taylor is the RB1. We are drafting him 1st overall. Many of us will obviously not have a chance to draft Jonathan Taylor because he will be the number 1 overall pick. If you do have the number 1 overall pick, don't overthink it. Jonathan Taylor is still really young. I would not be worried about an injury yet in his career. He's young. He hasn't received a ton of carries, even though he got a lot of carries at Wisconsin. I still feel fine with taking Jonathan Taylor as the number 1 overall pick. Josh Jacobs, I'm going to say probably maybe a back-end flex option. I'm not a fan of Josh Jacobs, but I understand why people are taking him. He is technically an RB1 in a good offense, and you know what? I'm going to move him up a little bit because you have to understand, he's an RB1. That offense is going to score with Davante Adams. If you can get him in the 4th round, that's where he seems to be going in 12-team leagues, so it's decent value. Kareem Hunt is just a handcuff to me. I'll put him in front of A.J. Dillon. Right now, Kareem Hunt is holding out, trying to get a new contract. or demanding a trade, whatever. But if he does play for the Browns, I just don't feel comfortable starting Kareem Hunt if Nick Chubb is healthy. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion. Same thing with A.J. Dillon. If you're not the RB1, if you're not, going to be the consistent featured guy, I'm not going to start you and hope you get some fluke goal line touchdown. Leonard Fournette is a really underrated running back, guys. He really is. I have to put him in the, well, you could really go borderline RB1, RB2. I'll say RB1 for Leonard Fournette. He's another guy going early second round. I would be fine with tanking. I would probably actually take Swift over him, if I'm being honest. So maybe move him right here. These are just my personal rankings on where I would take guys. I do like Leonard Fournette a lot, but just overall, maybe there's some injury concerns. He got a ton of carries at LSU. He got a ton of carries with Jacksonville. He's getting up there a little bit, but he is an underrated running back. Maybe one of the most underrated running backs in the league. Melvin Gordon is one of the better handcuffs. I think that's basically it. I'm not starting him if Williams is healthy. There's no reason to. Michael Carter, I guess a handcuff. Michael Carter's likely going to be, a third down back. I do love Breece Hall. Breece Hall is not on here, and I love Breece Hall. So if you need to draft Breece Hall, that's a player. So, I guess Breece Hall wouldn't be. When it comes to the sleepers category, the reason there's no sleepers, it's just like I would put Tyler Algier in here. I would put Tony Pollard. Is Tony Pollard? Oh, there's Tony Pollard. So there will be sleepers. The problem is a lot of these guys are just not going to be in that category right now that I'm seeing. So Miles Sanders, I don't know what to make of Miles Sanders. Every draft I see, or every mock draft I do, Miles Sanders falls. He seems to get injured a lot. Technically, he is the lead back, so I will put him as a flex option. I like that. We'll put him right next to Mitchell and Gibson, kind of as a flex option. We'll see. He technically should be the lead back. The major issues there is Jalen Hurts tends to steal a bunch of goal line touchdowns. That's a problem with Miles Sanders. Najee Harris is an RB1. I would probably put him I'd probably put him right here. Yeah, I like that ranking for Najee Harris. So Najee Harris late in the first round, I'm fine with taking him. He is a very young running back, so he's going to have fresh legs. Very little risk of injury. And then if Kenny Pickett does end up playing, young quarterbacks love checking the ball down. So he's going to get a bunch of catches with PPR points. I like that. Nick Chubb, the only issue I have with Nick Chubb is just the lack of PPR points. He doesn't get very many catches. He fits somewhere right in here with Fournette and Henry, in my opinion, as a very solid RB2, which is where he's being drafted in the second round of most of these drafts. He's a fine pick, but it is frustrating because he doesn't get those cheesy type 5 or 6 catches where you get 5 or 6 free points. That is annoying. Rashard Penny, I would say, I don't know, handcuff. I love Kenneth Walker, and Kenneth Walker is not on here. So Kenneth Walker is a rookie from Michigan State that I think is going to be starting for the Seahawks by week 10. And I think they're going to want to see what they can get out of him. Rashard Penny, we'll see. I don't think you could label him at maybe back-end flex option at the start of the season. Maybe. I don't know. Stevenson, handcuff, I would say. Although a lot of people are high on him, I don't trust Bill Belichick with that backfield. Although, Stevenson is not I would put maybe him as a sleeper. The problem is I have no sleepers just because none of these running backs really fit that category until we get down to Tony Pollard. Ronald Jones, I'm just not interested in drafting him. I think he's with Kansas City right now. Saquon Barkley, it's very tough with Saquon. I have no clue where to rank Saquon. If he's healthy, he's probably, he is an RB1 if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, which it's likely he might get injured yet again for like the 4th straight season, he goes into the bust category. So I have no clue where to rank him. I think we'll just put him back-end RB2 because you have to manage the health concerns. I don't know, guys. If you want to be risky, if you're in a 10-team league, you can draft him in the 3rd round. Maybe you get lucky. Maybe he's healthy for a full season. In that case, you drafted an RB1 in the 3rd round. Congratulations. But then again, with Saquon, it's getting to the point, it's like, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times, fool me 4 times. How many times is he going to get injured? That's the issue with Saquon. Sony Michel, I'm not interested in draft. Well, you could say handcuff. You could say handcuff with Sony. But again, even if, I don't even know if he's worth that. Tony Pollard is, there we go, we finally got a sleeper. So I love Tony Pollard as a sleeper along with Tyler Algier. Those are my top 2 running back sleepers. I do think Tony Pollard in the passing game with Dallas needs to be utilized more. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry last year. So Tony Pollard is someone I really like. And then we've got Travis Etienne, who I think is a phenomenal flex option. I'm going to put him as the top flex option. Even an RB2 maybe, but I would feel more comfortable with Etienne if you go running back round 1, running back round 2, and then maybe Etienne in round 4 or round 5 as your flex. How I would set up my draft, I'm drafting 2 running backs within the first 3 rounds for sure. I can wait on receivers. I love Jerry Jeudy middle rounds. I love Michael Thomas, as long as he's healthy, that's a risk, but there's a lot of receivers that you can draft in the middle of the draft. Take the running backs early. If you've got the first overall pick, Jonathan Taylor, late 2nd round, you can maybe draft someone like Cam Akers. That's definitely a strategy. J.K. Dobbins, early 3rd round. There's running backs to take. Make sure you get the RB1s, and then these are just all the same players. I don't know why it's like that, but overall, guys, these would be my list for kind of where I value these players. Jonathan Taylor, obviously. McCaffrey, it's injuries as long as he's healthy. Ekeler, he's a beast in PPR. Dalvin Cook, there is an injury concern, but as long as you get Alexander Mattison, you should be okay. Mixon, just a stud. Najee Harris, young stud, PPR machine. And then Cam Akers. Maybe a little risk coming off an injury, but I love Cam Akers. Pass catching ability in that offense. They should be in the red zone a ton. Those are my RB1s for this upcoming season. And then, DeAndre Swift is a guy. The reason he's not an RB1, you do have Williams as another Lions running back who is going to steal some carries. I like Swift in the passing game. Leonard Fournette, maybe a bit of an injury concern. A lot of tread on his tires. Nick Chubb, it's the unfortunate, the reason he's not an RB1 is just the PPR opportunities are not there. Derrick Henry, there's major injury concerns, and he's playing in a bad offense with A.J. Brown now traded. J.K. Dobbins, I would say solid RB2, just injury concerns. But guys, I'm not going to go through every one of these players. You get the point. That is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.